All right, fine. Let's talk appraisals. What are they? Why do you need one? What's going to happen if you get a good one? What's going to happen if you get a bad one? How do I prepare for it? What do I do? I'm Lucius, the Viking Realtor. You're looking to buy or sell a home, so let's talk real estate. So let's just get down to it. What is an appraisal? An appraisal is the process of finding the value in any given object. In this case, we're talking about houses. Now, if you're buying a house and you're using cash, you don't have to get an appraisal. In some cases, people will get an appraisal to make sure that they're not overpaying for a home. They don't care if they're underpaying. They just want to make sure that they're not overpaying for a home. How do we do that? We look at the area around, we find out what houses have sold in the past. There's 95 pages that an appraiser is going to fill out, and essentially they're going to give you a value on that house at the end. Why do you need an appraisal? Well, that part's easy. It's the bank's way of protecting itself and the government or whoever you're borrowing the money from, making sure that the house is worth what they're giving you for the loan. Now, I'm of the opinion that if you give 10 appraisers the same house to appraise, every value is going to come up different. And that's not necessarily a big deal because they're not trying to determine the true value of the home. They're trying to determine that the money that you're asking to borrow is actually a safe bet for the bank or for a government-backed loan. There are processes in place to make sure that we're not over lending on homes so that we end up in another housing crash. Okay, let's back this truck up for a second and talk about why the buyer and the seller, both parties, care about the appraisal. One, the buyer can't buy the home if it's not appraised at the amount it needs to be appraised at. If they say, I'm going to give you $100,000 for the home needs to appraise at $100,000. I'm not going to get into too many details there, but the seller then needs to make sure that the house meets the appraised value that they're asking for the home. Therefore, both sides care. Both sides need to put in a little bit of effort. Now, the buyer has very little obligations as far as the appraisal goes. They order the appraisal, and they're probably hoping that the appraisal comes in a little bit lower so they can negotiate the price down. The reality of the situation, with the market being the way that it was for the past couple of years, we saw a lot of what's called appraisal gap languages, which meaning if I'm asking $100,000 for the house and the appraisal came in at $95,000, the buyer would then be responsible to pay that extra $5,000 in cash to meet that gap. That's not so much the case in today's market, but it's not unheard of. We saw that a lot more last year. The appraised value now, if I'm asking $100,000 for the house and the appraisal comes in at $95,000, what typically happens, and this isn't in every case, but the seller is either going to meet them in the middle or they're going to lower the price of that $95,000, because in the cases of FHA loans, for example, that appraisal is going to stay with the home for the next 90 days, which means no matter what buyer comes along, if that FHA appraisal is on file, they're going to know about it in advance. Now, the seller, on the other hand, needs to prepare for the appraisal. And what do I mean? I mean, we just need to have our information ready. I constantly tell people that I need your house perfect for 2 hours during this entire listing process, when I take the photos and when the appraiser comes. And I don't know when those 2 hours are going to be, so you might as well keep it perfect throughout the entire listing process. We understand that people live there. The reality is, though, if you are trying to get the absolute top dollar for your property and you're trying to convince the appraiser, the bank, and everyone else that your house is worth $50,000 more than every other house in the neighborhood, we need to give the appraiser ammunition to go along with that statement. So what does that mean? I mean, I want to give them all the comps that I use to price the home. Now I need to tell them why your house is worth more. What improvements did you make? Was it the windows, the roof, the flooring? What did you do to make your house that much more? The best way that we can possibly tell them why your house is worth more is by giving them that ammunition. They need to be able to tell the bank why they appraised the house where they appraised it. If we look at every comp in the area and they're $50,000 cheaper, the bank is going to ask questions. The government's going to ask questions. We need to know why. Give them the ammunition that they need. If your house is coming in under value, it's because, and I promise you this, you're not giving the appraiser the information that they need. And that is something that is sorely, sorely underestimated in the real estate world. If you have a listing agent who is not preparing a listing and appraisal packet for the appraiser, you're doing something wrong. There are very few times throughout the selling process that a realtor really needs to show their merit. And unfortunately, the appraisal is one of the biggest, and it's in the middle of the transaction. So you won't know whether or not they suck at it until it's actually too late. If your listing, if your house is undervalued and your agent does not have information prepared to support their claim that your house is worth X amount, don't believe it. If they're coming in the door and they're saying, oh, I can sell your house for $50,000 more than the other agent that you're going to go with, make them prove it. There's actual information that they can hand you to say, this is why I believe your house is worth more than this person does. And if you're simply trying to inflate the value on your house to see what you can get, you're also just making your job even harder. Your job, not mine. I can list the house wherever you want, but you're going to get your hopes up. You're going to mourn that money, and you're going to be the one that loses it because you had an inflated sense of value that just wasn't there. Clearly, this is a topic that I'm passionate about, and it's because it does have such a huge impact on the home buying and selling process. It's important to know that your agent knows what they're talking about. On day one of any listing, I'm going to show up with a packet that proves my reasoning behind the price that I put on your home. We can argue it back and forth, but ultimately, you're going to know that I know how to prove that value. But hey, you don't have to take my 2 cents. I'm just here to make sure you get the valuation that you deserve. Stay tuned each and every week as we find new and exciting ways for you to think about your home buying and selling process. Again, I am Lucius the Viking Realtor. You're looking to buy or sell a home. Thank you for watching. Let's talk real estate.